Good morning, everybody. Welcome along. Hopefully, everybody can hear me and see our screen at the moment. Can I get a couple of hands up potentially in our webinar if we can see that? Awesome. Cool. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Awesome to see a few names that we can recognise in our attendee list, and then obviously a few that we don't know. So welcome along. Thanks for joining. I'm here with Alex Haskell. Alex, can you? Awesome.
Yeah.
Can hear you there. So Alex, Alex is our lead designer. There we go. Alex is our lead designer here at Lead Social, and is with us here in the webinar, and she'll be helping answer some of our Q&A questions, as well as managing any questions that you might have as we kind of go through the webinar. Yeah. Quickly run you through what we're going to go over today, and then we can get started. Give me one sec. Also just going to add in Naval, who is from Te Waka. Give me one sec and we will be there. Awesome. Welcome, Naval. Can you hear us there?
She's not on mute.
Yeah, we'll just give Naval a sec just to let his system load up, and hopefully he is in and ready to go. Lucky enough to have made my way into the office this morning for the first time in the last sort of 5 weeks, which has been a nice change from working from home, as good as it has been.
Can you guys hear and see me? Alex from Lead Social. Perfect. Cool.
So I've just unmuted you there, Naval, so I think you should be good to go if you can hear us.
Right. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I just get my screen. It's got all over the place. Right. Okay. Welcome everyone to a webinar hosted by Te Waka and Lead Social. I'm Novel Gopa from Te Waka. I'll have a brief explanation of what we do at the end of the webinar. I'll just do the welcome now. I'll do an opening karakia. Tēnā koutou katoa. Whakataka te hau ki te uru. Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mākina kina ki uta. Kia mātaratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura he tio. He huka, he hauhunga, haumie, huie, taiki. Thank you. Back to you, Steve and Alex.
Thanks, Naval. Appreciate that. Awesome. So without further ado, I'll get started and show you through some of the webinar that we've got. Let's just skip a slide there. So for those of you who don't know who Lead Social are, we are a digital marketing agency based here in Hamilton, and we work with businesses all over the Waikato, as well as all around New Zealand. We've been around for just on 6 years now, and over that period, we've had the awesome opportunity to work with some pretty cool brands, which you can see up on my screen at the moment. There's these brands as well as a lot more that we have that we work with very closely to either manage their social media, build their websites, run Google ads, or anything like that. So really privileged, I guess, to work with all these different businesses in different industries, everything from public sector businesses through to small owner-operator businesses and startups. and then national brands and companies as well. So pretty fortunate. I feel pretty lucky to work alongside my team to work with these businesses, and again, really focusing in on social media for them and how they can utilize social media to build their business or their organization. So today's webinar, we've got a bit of a content schedule here in front of us. So 3 trends. I'm going to start off and talk about 3 trends that we've seen since the lockdown started. Kind of discuss what's been going on, what we've seen, and what's relevant and timely to now. We're then going to cover off what we should be posting about as a business, what platforms you should be using and why, and then how to use Facebook and Instagram ads. And I guess there may not be a whole lot of really new information in those last 3 categories, because those are probably looking at the fundamentals. These things shouldn't predominantly change now that we're going through COVID and as we move through these alert levels. It's really about what are the fundamental things that we should be focusing on in those points and in those sectors, and largely they don't change massively week to week or month to month. So they're really those key kind of fundamentals. As we run through this webinar, if you've got any questions or any queries, you're not sure about anything, feel free to ask a question in the chat. Alex is there, and I'm more than happy to kind of stop and answer those questions as we go. There will be time for some Q&A at the end as well. So I definitely encourage you, if you haven't sent through any questions already, to fire those through, and then we can make sure we address those and hopefully give you a bit more context around some of those answers and specific answers around your problems or around your situation. So the first thing that we've seen a lot of since the lockdown has happened is screen time across all of the social media channels has gone up through the roof. Everyone's got a lot more time on their hands. People that haven't been able to work, people that haven't been able to get outside and do things, are typically watching more on TV. They're spending more time on their phones using these apps. As well as that screen time going through the roof, we've seen engagement go through the roof. So I think a key thing is that people aren't just spending more time online, but they're actually engaging with the brands. They're actually consuming content and they're doing things about that. So I think anytime there's an increase in those 2 things, there's a big opportunity for a business to make the most of that opportunity and increase, the content that they're putting out there and making sure that they are being seen as people are spending more time on there. People are breaking down the barriers to buying online. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has brought something online in the last 4 or 5 weeks who from a brand or from a business that you may not have brought online from before. We purchased a new vacuum cleaner as an example in a store where I'd usually just go in, have a chat to someone, pick the product that I want and then purchase. Instead we did that online because that was the way everyone's buying at the moment. So I think the barriers that people usually have between buying online are getting broken down, and I think we're going to see that continue as we move out of these different alert levels. That's going to continue to be easy for people to buy online, and more people are going to buy online because of it. The third one that we're seeing is there's definitely more focus and more premise around people understanding what's working for their marketing. So business owners are looking to see the money that they are spending as things get tighter, as we're looking harder at cash flow, as we want to make sure we're doing the most effective things possible. They're looking to see what's working and how well it's working, and predominantly that comes from us tracking it. So making sure that we've got things set up in place that allow us to report back on those tracking and on the ROI of our marketing, so that we can be smarter and we can do better, basically. That's definitely some of the trends that we've seen, I think, from it. The last one is everyone is doing more. So I think we've definitely seen a lot more businesses who predominantly use word of mouth marketing and relied on that word of mouth and the organic inbound inquiries that they get, and now starting to look at what else can they do. So they're starting to understand that they shouldn't just rely on that stream that's kind of organic and happens on its own. How can they create more interest in their business, whether they're busy at the moment or not? They're trying to drum up some more stuff so that they're prepared for as they move out of this kind of these alert levels, that they've got the work there and the sales coming in. Just a couple of trends, I guess, that we've seen throughout this. A big question that we've been asked from our customers, as well as partners and friends and people that we talk to throughout this, is what should we be posting during COVID? And I think it's a really interesting question, because our core content strategy shouldn't change hugely. Obviously, there's different things that we should be posting about. We should be letting people know that we're there for them. We should be letting people know that we're there to support them. We should be helping them. So I guess when you can't sell, we should be building our relationships, just the same as we do offline, right? So the same as you would with your neighbors. Offer support, be kind, be there, give value, tips, tricks, insights, all that sort of stuff, just to help build that relationship. I think the key problem that a lot of businesses make when they look at their content is they just think about how they sell. And really, they should be introducing themselves and building that relationship before they sell. And the best way to do that is to treat it like we would build a relationship offline. So doing that. During COVID, obviously, there are some things that you want to try and inform your customers about. So we want to make sure that we're telling them if you're open, obviously if you're doing click and collect or delivery for some businesses. A number of our customers are essential services, and they've been working throughout this whole time, making sure that their customers are aware of what they can and can't do, and all of the changes that have happened. So obviously, as new information comes to hand, if that affects your business or your industry, making sure that you're relaying that to your customers. I think more than ever, businesses are becoming that go-to place to get the information specific to them. So people aren't necessarily looking at that COVID website to get the information from that business to know if they're open or when they're open or what they can buy from them. They're going directly to that page or to their website to do that. So, so when you can't sell, build relationships. It's a long-term game, but it's a long-term game that works. There's a reason why the businesses spend that time working on building that relationship before they try and sell to people. And I think if we can do that, then I think long-term we'll reap the rewards from that. And when you can sell, remember, you shouldn't just sell. So again, going back to the point, I guess, of understanding why people buy from you, rather than just what you sell or what you deliver to people, is the key point there. How do you sell? So again, another good question that we get. So a lot of businesses can easily put together this information that provides value. So we might be a plumbing company and we're talking about autumn tips for how to keep your home working well, and it might be things like clearing out your gutters, or some checks that you can do on your hot water cylinder or your gas water supply, things like that. So there's tips and tricks that they can give, but then when they do want to sell, how do they sell and how do they sell effectively? And that's really where your social media strategy comes into it. I think a lot of businesses struggle to sell and not come across too salesy, and this is where we're sitting down and creating a social media strategy that breaks down your products, your services, your objectives, and then shows you how to package that into content is really crucial, and it helps you move quickly, which I think is a key part for any business owner who's looking to get more time up their sleeve and not spend endless amounts of time on social and managing their social media profiles. Is how do they move quickly with it, and definitely a social media strategy can help that. Wanted to show you through really quickly a bit of an analogy that we use for social media strategies, just so that you can see what that looks like. It's a bit of an overview. I can't go into it in too much detail during this webinar because there's just simply not enough time. But it should give you a good overview as to how a strategy is laid out, what the purposes of it is, and how you can kind of go about starting that process. So the first is our objectives. A lot of businesses, I guess, start with content and they're looking at what should we be posting about. But unless we start with our objectives and our high level objectives and what we're trying to achieve, then we can't guarantee that content we're posting maps back to it. So that's why we typically start at a high level, understanding what a business is trying to do. And almost always the first objective that comes to mind for business owners is sales. and sales is definitely a part of that. But then there's typically other objectives too. You might have an objective of building an engaged audience. It might be an objective of informing people about a particular product or a particular unique selling point for your business or your services. So we've got our objectives there up the top, and you can see some of these lines are longer than others, and that's because some objectives are bigger than others. Just because it's an objective doesn't mean they have to have the same weight or the same emphasis on them. We can have small objectives as well as big objectives. The second part is our pillars of focus. So again, if we use that objective of making sales, our pillars of focus is how do we get there? How do we do that? How do we convince a customer or talk to a customer and market to them so that they understand the reason why they should buy that product? Again, a pillar of focus might be for a plumbing company, that they have a 60-minute turnaround for any call-outs, emergency call-outs that happen. So that would be a pillar of focus. That would help us produce sales. It would help us to generate more revenue for that business, which is our key objective, or one of those key objectives. And that's one of the ways that we'll do that. Another pillar of focus might be the different services that they offer. So understanding the key services that they do, and if there's any that are unique to them or they're specialists in, those would be our pillars of focus. Typically, a business will have at least 3 or 4 different pillars of focus, but they could have more. If you've got different arms of your business, or you've got lots of unique selling points for your business, then typically those pillars of focus can increase. And the third one we've got down here is our content. So again, we've gone from the top of what we want to achieve at a high level. We've then figured out how we do that, and that's our pillars. And then we look at our content, which is essentially the ground level. This is what people see, and this is how we communicate those pillars of focus. So again, using that example of a plumbing company, if their pillar of focus is that 60-minute turnaround time for emergency call-outs, then part of that content that falls under that pillar will be showcasing that, whether that's through video, through photos, through design, and the copy that's used in those messages. But essentially, that's how we've got to that content. We know when we work back up that maps back to our key objective of increasing sales, and the way we do that is through promoting that 60-minute turnaround service. Again, a pillar of focus or another objective for a plumbing company or any business might be to generate new employees or new staff or new team members for their company. So attracting talent. So the pillar of focus for attracting talent may be an awesome work environment, or it might be the awesome jobs that they get to work on. If they get to work on a more interesting projects than what a typical plumbing company might work on, or if there's pride with the customers that they're working with, and those pillars of focus can then flow into our content, which would be, hey, here's the guys out on this job, or here's a job that we've completed, or a before and after, or if we're trying to map back to that objective of building our team and showing the great work environment. If our pillar of focus is showing that great work environment, then we should be talking about Friday after work drinks, or a team building activity, or our Christmas do, or things like that, to kind of showcase what that team culture looks like. So I guess, again, all of that content that gets produced should map back to a high level objective, some of which will be sales, some of which might be other things too. It's not just going to be sales. And we've got a nice little house there. So again, bit of an analogy to try and help us understand what a strategy looks like, how we get there, rather than starting from the bottom and trying to work our way out. There's one thing that's missing from the strategy. So obviously we've looked at what we're talking about, how we do it, what it looks like. The key thing that's missing at the moment is our path to get there. And that's where we talk about distribution. How do we make sure that people see that content that we produce, and it gets put in front of the right people? And we'll probably talk about that in the next part of the last part of our webinar, as we talk about our distribution model, or Google and Facebook and Instagram ads. Quick little fact there. So you're 42% more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. And I think that number is probably pretty modest. I think if you write down your goals and you have them in front of you and you have a clear path on how you get there, then I'd say that the chance of you achieving those is probably much higher than 42%. But when I Googled it, that was the number that came out. And I think the same goes for a social media strategy. So again, if you've got those goals, those objectives written down, and we know what we're mapping to, we're much more likely to achieve them if we've got a clear path to do so. So definitely encouraging businesses of all shapes and sizes to write down a strategy. It shouldn't be a huge document, and it shouldn't take a ton of time. I think there's no point really having a 30-page strategy that you never look at. For most businesses that we work with, we'd look to try and create a one-page strategy that you could look at on a weekly basis or a monthly basis to ensure that you're on the right track and that you know what you're doing. Shorter strategy that's seen more often is definitely going to be more effective than a longer strategy that never gets opened. How are we tracking there, Alex? Have you got any questions or anything so far?
Not so far, no.
Cool.
Oh,
Good
in
as
the
gold.
chat, wait, let me check the Q&A. We've actually got a Q&A from Paul.
Yes.
How long do we think this increase in time and engagement will last?
It's hard to know, Paul. I think we've already seen a slight drop off as we've gone down to alert level 3. Naturally, businesses are doing more. Business owners are able to do more and get out and about. And I think people are probably seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So it's hard to know how long we will see this for. But I think in general, if people have habits and people are doing more and they're spending more time on social and things like that, then I would be surprised if there wasn't a lift that lasted for the next sort of 3 to 6 month period. Yep.
I'm with you on that one, Steve. I think that this has kind of changed people's habits altogether, and that there's so much out there encouraging people to keep shopping local. And while we're still social distancing, people will continue to do this.
Absolutely. Especially, I think we work with a few companies that rely heavily on events. And when those events can't happen, I think there'll be a lot of digital activation instead. And that could be as simple as content on social media, or it could be as advanced as doing virtual events. I saw that the field days were looking at doing a digital field days where people could log in and have a look around the field days digitally. So I think some fundamental changes like that would be really interesting to see. What that builds and what habits continue on for a longer period of time rather than come in and go quickly. Cool. Was that our only question there, Alex?
Yeah, none in the chat.
Perfect. If anyone does have any questions, again, feel free to jump in there and ask. Happy to answer them along the way, and obviously some Q&A at the end. So looking forward to hearing some of the specific challenges or problems that you guys might be having, and providing some context and some light around that.
Kathy, we did get your email, but we'll answer those ones at the end in the Q&A for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Alex.
I'm also just quickly writing short bullet points in the Q&A and the answers, so you guys can all see that what Steve and I have come back to you with.
Perfect. What platform should you be using? So again, we get this question a lot, prior to any lockdown, but during lockdown, as more people have had extra time on their hands, they start to look around and see what other apps they should be using or downloading, and should their business or organization be there. I think it's a really interesting question. And I think there have been some fundamental changes in the last probably year or two that we've seen, and obviously some new apps in the last year that have come on the space. I'll quickly run through in priority, I guess, what platforms I think businesses should be on without getting too specific. Obviously, we're talking to a pretty wide audience here, and we're talking generalizations, but I think for most businesses this would be relevant. The first is Facebook. Facebook is a huge platform because of the ad tool that's available. It's also a huge platform because of the number of people who are already on it. And I think if I was to only use one social media platform for my business, or the majority of businesses that we've worked with over the last 6 years, Facebook would be the one. If I had to choose one, then it would definitely be Facebook. Such a broad audience of people there, such an easy ad tool to kind of capitalize on and use. The opportunities for Facebook are huge, and I think it may not be as easy as it was 3, 4, 5 years ago when I guess the wave of Facebook was coming on, and a lot of people were riding that wave of an upcoming platform. As the uptake has soared, it's naturally going to plateau a little bit, and ads are more expensive than they have been before. But it doesn't mean that it's not effective. I definitely think if we had our time again, to know how lucky we were sort of 4 or 5 years ago to spend, $5 and reach 1,000 or 2,000 people from Facebook ads, we were very, very lucky, and I wish we'd probably doubled down and done more. Now we might be spending between $10 and $15 to reach 1,000 people, but it's still very effective. People are still on there, and we are seeing some really good organic reach with some of the pages that we manage. So pages that are providing good content, that are providing good value in their content, they are still getting good organic reach. So there is opportunities out there.
A few more questions from Paul that's just come through.
Sure.
Do you consider YouTube a social media platform?
I do consider YouTube to be a social media platform. I think the lines between what is social media and what is Web 2.0 or web is pretty blurred. I think anytime you can leave comments, then it lends itself well to being a social platform, and you can have subscribers and things like that, and generate an audience. I haven't put YouTube up here, Paul, because I don't think there is as much opportunity in YouTube as there is on Facebook and Instagram and even LinkedIn for some businesses. Again, this isn't industry specific, so there might be some industries that that do lend themselves well to YouTube, and I'd love to explore those if anyone's got any questions around that. But I think my my pet peeve with YouTube is that people aren't going to YouTube without an agenda of looking something up or watching someone in particular, whereas people are searching through Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn to consume content that they may not already know or be searching for directly. So I think when a business uploads something to YouTube, unless they've got a way of driving traffic to that video, then it's not going to get the traction that it would, say, on something like Facebook or Instagram. Obviously different if you have a YouTube channel and you've built that to have 10,000 subscribers and you've got an audience there, a captive audience that's ready to go, then I think then that's definitely a good opportunity. But I think, again, in that case, in terms of marketing that YouTube channel and growing that audience and getting more people to see it than the 10,000 subscribers that you've already got, then these platforms that we've got in front of us are probably the way to do that.
Cool. We've also got another one from Paul, which says, do you see influencer marketing being part of a distribution network? 100%.
So I think within these platforms, posting from your page isn't the only way to utilize them. So I think businesses should be looking to join Facebook groups. In the last 12 months, they've allowed not just people to join groups, but now allow businesses to join groups, which I think is a really interesting concept. So it means that you could then join a group and post or comment from your business. So when we talk about marketing, it may not be just a one-way distribution channel, but you might be partaking in conversation or engaging with people in a less outward projection, I guess, when it's in a group like that. In terms of influencer marketing, I think influencer marketing definitely has its place in a content marketing strategy and on these platforms. I think the influencer marketing space will be really interesting over the next sort of 6 months as businesses get a little bit tighter on cash flow. I think some of the more expensive influencers and influencers who could demand a lot of money or a high cost behind their services will probably take a bit of a hit as less businesses are willing to spend more. I think there'll probably be more opportunity for influencers to do a profit share model, where they might have a coupon, or they might have an affiliate link where they can get a cut of the sales that are actually produced rather than paying a big upfront fee. And I think that's probably a good way to be in the influencer space, because if it's not paying for itself, then it's not necessarily worth doing. I really think the big opportunity in the influencer game is probably with micro influencers. So looking at who are the smaller influencers who have a really genuine following, who have really high engagement rates, and they might only have a following of say 300 or 400 people up to 1,000, and it might not cost a lot to get them on board. You could either provide them with a free product or a discounted service, or sometimes you don't even have to do that, and they'll talk about your products for you, or vouch for you, or be an influencer, and you haven't had to outlay much in the way of capital. So I think for a lot of businesses, looking at micro influencers rather than one big influencer is a better strategy. As we touch on Instagram, so I think Instagram for us has definitely been the growth platform. Over the last 2 years, we've seen huge amount of people migrate from not necessarily from Facebook, but migrate to Instagram, and the screen time again on that app has gone up through the roof. We've also seen a whole lot of business-specific tools come available, which has really helped grow businesses on Instagram. So things like analytics, things like ads, all the different ways of posting. We get all the demographic information back. All of this stuff lends itself well to businesses using Instagram much better than they did before. We're not relying purely on organic reach, or not being able to see some of the numbers behind it. Now we have all of that ability. So I think Instagram has definitely become a powerful tool. A, because of the users that have grown to use it, and then B, because of the ad tools and the tool analytic tools that we have available to us.
Sorry.
Off you go, Alex.
Just while you're talking about metrics and analytics, Tony has come in and asked what metrics and analytics determine posting frequency.
Typically, we wouldn't decide on posting frequency by our analytics or engagement rates. I guess because it is quite specific to what content you're posting. So you could be posting 10 times a week, and if all 10 of those posts are low value posts that don't provide a lot of insight for a fan or an audience, then we shouldn't be posting that much. And on the flip side of that, if we're posting 10 times a week and we're providing really good information, and we've got lots of good stories to tell, then I think we'll see that engagement rate reflect that. It's typically when we look at frequency, and again, I don't think a social media strategy, as we sit around a boardroom table looking at what we should be posting about, we shouldn't decide on a number, because I think that's quite abstract. I think we should be looking at all of the different things that happen within our business, and that maps back to that strategy that we can talk about, and happen on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis, and then from that deciding how often we should be posting. And it might change week to week or month to month as we have more or less content available. I think businesses who are really constrained and say, okay, I'm only going to do 3 posts a week, they might be leaving some opportunities on the table when they've actually got some really good content, which could be talked about. And then other businesses who say we should be posting once a day, but they've only really got 3 or 4 good stories per week, then they shouldn't be kind of trying to stretch that out too much.
Cool, that's all on our Q&A for now.
Nice. So again, Facebook, massive opportunity because of the size of it and the population that exists on there. Instagram is growing hugely, and I think there's still an opportunity to get in on Instagram in the early days. So we're probably, I feel Instagram is where Facebook was sort of 2 or 3 years ago. Again, ads are cheaper, there's more attention available, and not as many businesses are on Instagram as there are on Facebook. So anytime that there's that there's less on there and there's more opportunity for you to grab, that's a good thing for business owners. LinkedIn is another interesting platform that we've seen change massively over the last 2 years. So I think LinkedIn used to always be a room full of salesmen, and nobody was really on there to buy. So a fundamental flaw, I think, was that everyone saw this opportunity to sell because it was a professional platform. And again, no one was there just to consume the content or to buy from those people, and it became quite spammy. Microsoft bought it, I think 2 or 3 years ago now, for an absurd amount of money. Off the top of my head, I think it was about $28 billion, whilst LinkedIn was losing money. And they've kind of turned it around a little bit. It looks and feels a lot more like Facebook in terms of the news feed, in terms of the way we engage, the chat box options. And now I think people have started to go to LinkedIn to consume content, which is a really fundamental difference that we've seen. And I think that's really good. I think that's what LinkedIn needed to have happen to survive. And we've seen a lot of businesses and employees as well use LinkedIn to build those professional networks. I think no longer is it just a place for businesses to promote their things or business owners to promote what's going on, but also employees can help build their own following and their own influence on LinkedIn, and that will help obviously build that business. So I think the opportunity for a lot of businesses is to tap into their employees, into their network of team, to distribute the content they put up on LinkedIn. And typically we see it's a lot easier for someone to grow their personal LinkedIn connections than it is for a business to grow its following. The reason we see this is because when you go away from a meeting with a new customer or a potential client or a new connection, it's not weird to add them on LinkedIn and connect. Whereas on Facebook, it would be, if you met with them in a purely professional capacity, you may not jump into adding them as a friend on Facebook. So instead, on Facebook, you might go and like that company and follow that company to get updates. Whereas on LinkedIn, because it's appropriate to go and connect with somebody that you've only met once or twice through a professional capacity, you're less likely to go and follow that company and more likely to go and follow that person. So typically, again, we see the opportunity lies in the people and their connections on LinkedIn rather than just the businesses, and using that as a bit of a distribution network. And then I guess down the bottom there, we've got industry-specific platforms. So there's some industries that lend themselves very well to the likes of Twitter. I know the craft beer industry is quite strong on Twitter, probably more strong on Twitter than it is on Facebook. Believe through talking with customers that the equestrian industry is big on Twitter. I know some of the farming industries are really big, especially internationally. But overall, the platform isn't anywhere near as big as Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn in New Zealand. So if you deal with the general public, if your sales and your customer demographic doesn't map back to a really specific industry or group of people, then Twitter may not be the right platform for you. It's a matter of just having a look and seeing if that audience exists on there and if it's strong, and then making a decision around that. Fundamentally, though, your content shouldn't change hugely between these platforms, right? You should be still posting about things that map back to your objectives. They still talk about your focus pillars, which is what's interesting, and you're still producing that content that maps back to the 3 levels of that strategy. The way you post is different. Obviously, Twitter has things like restriction on characters. Instagram has a restriction on links. Has a restriction on how long you can post videos for. And there's fundamental differences between these platforms on how you might post, but the general messaging or the general theme of your posts shouldn't change massively. Again, in that industry-specific line there, we've got things like Pinterest. So if you're an interior design company, or if you were an industrial design company, or things that have a real visual appeal to them, and you know people are searching on Pinterest to create mood boards and create boards that would be relevant to your products and your services, or your products probably, then Pinterest can be a really good tool. Again, when we look at different platforms that we've got here in front of us, we're usually looking to see what are the most downloaded platforms in New Zealand. Off the top of my head, I think Twitter is just outside the top 100, and I think Pinterest is around the same. So a big difference compared to the likes of Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. They're usually in the top 10 to 20.
And what about Google Ads as a platform?
Absolutely. So I guess Google Ads for us is less of a social media channel and more of a search tool, I guess, for us. Again, you don't have the ability to comment or subscribe, and it's not usually driven by people finding you by chance. It's more reactive to people searching for you. So I definitely think Google Ads has its place in a marketing strategy, and it's a great tool. We run Google Ads for a number of our customers, but there's a key difference where social media content, I guess, is trying to target people who may not know you exist or may not be searching for you directly. And then Google Ads is very much a sales tool around, we know those people are searching for us. They're searching for our keywords or our brand, and we can put an ad in front of them to try and generate a sale then and there. Whereas probably some of those social media platforms are more of a longer term game. But definitely Google Ads is a powerful tool that should sit alongside a good social media strategy.
We've got another question. Do Lead Social, do SEO, and do the reviews and ratings work?
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think in general, the reviews and ratings do work. Again, it depends on your industry and how people are searching for your products. But I think getting good reviews and getting an optimized profile, especially on that Google Local Maps or Google My Business profiles, is really powerful. It's easy to do, and once you've got sort of 10 or 20 good reviews in there and a good presence, then that doesn't go anywhere. You know, that lasts for a long time, and you only have to keep updating it periodically and keep pushing to get those reviews to keep some relevant recent ones up there, rather than needing to do as much work every month in, month out. So definitely some good opportunities there. I remember we talked to a property management company here locally about 3 or 4 years ago and said that they should really be pushing to get some good Google reviews because no one else in their industry had good Google reviews. So when someone searched their business, they were the only one that had a really solid 5-star rating. And that definitely paid dividends. He said that was one of the best bits of advice that we'd given him throughout that year, and he'd definitely seen good response back from it.
Cool. There are a few other questions in the Q&A, but I think we'll leave those to the end Q&A section, guys.
Nice. Cool. Only other platform that I've got down the bottom there is TikTok, and we often get asked about TikTok. Is it a good platform to be using? Are we seeing results from it? Should businesses be jumping on there? Look, I think TikTok is very, very young, and it's been built to provide entertainment for people, and it doesn't really lend itself super well to businesses, right? So if we're trying to market our accountancy firm or a law firm or a brick and mortar retail business, it doesn't really provide us the ways of posting content that really show off our products or our services or allow us to communicate the focus pillars that we've got. So if it means we're just putting content up there for the sake of it, or we're putting content up there that doesn't quite tell the whole story, then I think there's probably 2 bigger parts that are missing. I also think that people are on there to see people rather than businesses, and if we have too many businesses on there trying to push products, that we might actually see a negative pushback from that, and it may shorten the lifespan of TikTok potentially. I think again, if even if there is a small opportunity on TikTok, the other platforms that we've got listed above them have got a huge opportunity, and by sitting and waiting for the next sort of 6 months, maybe a year, to see what happens with TikTok, and if it progresses massively, we won't lose out in a massive way. I think if you were a personal brand, if you were a presenter or an actor, then I definitely think TikTok, or a comedian, I definitely think TikTok has its place and is really good at promoting that personal brand. But again, it's not lending itself well for traditional businesses or a brick and mortar business to sell and promote its products and services. In saying that, the only thing we have done for a few businesses, which can be a good idea, is saving a username. So if you do jump on TikTok and create an account and save the handle of your business, it can be a good way to do it. And you don't necessarily have to use that profile. It can just sit there as a ghost profile, but at least then you've secured that name and secured that handle for future if ever it was to take off. The other thing I want to really quickly touch on when we talk about these platforms is not all businesses have the time to do all of them and to do all of them well. So I would encourage businesses to A, prioritize them, and B, plan out how much resource that you've got to utilize them properly. Because I think doing one or two profiles of platforms really well is better than doing 3 or 4 really averagely. So I think make sure that you are prioritizing them, and just because there might be a small opportunity out there doesn't necessarily mean that you should jump on there at the cost of those other platforms. Again, those are listed in priority of where I think the best opportunity for businesses are in the next 12 months, if not longer, and it should be treated that way. Any other questions, Alex, before I move on?
I think these ones we'll just answer at the end of the Q&A.
Perfect. Cool. Really quickly, we did have some stats there around the Instagram demographic, because we do get asked quite often, who makes up the profile of those people, and are older people on Instagram. And when I say older people, I hope no one takes offense, but I just mean anyone who hasn't grown up with the internet, I believe falls into that older category when we're talking about social media platforms. And I think there's some huge opportunities, to see 23% of people that are aged 50 to 64 on Instagram is massive. And that's a number that is growing quickly. So both that 23% of 50 to 64-year-olds and the 8% of 65-plus-year-olds are the fastest growing categories of that Instagram user. Almost half of 30 to 49-year-olds are on Instagram. This is stats from the United States, because we don't really get super specific 2020 stats for New Zealand as easily. But I think it would be a very similar demographic when we look at that age group of people. So very interesting to see. And then obviously that top stat there of 67% of 18 to 29-year-olds. So, well and truly over half, close to 3/4, are using Instagram as a big opportunity. Facebook ads live example. I'm just going to really quickly run through an example. I know we're running a little bit short on time, and then we can crack into some Q&A after that. So just bear with me 1 second. I'll pull up an ad platform. Can I quickly see a show of hands who has used the boost function on Facebook before?
If you don't know how to raise your hand, just click under participants and you should get an option.
Perfect. And then can I get a show of hands of anyone that's used the Ads Manager platform before? Cool, okay. So we've got a pretty even split there between everybody. What I'll quickly do is show you through, just because we are lacking a little bit of time, I'll show you through the boost function to make sure that we can get as many people using and understanding that, and then can talk about some of the advanced features that happen in the Ads Manager and some of the Q&A if anyone's got any specific questions. Cool. So
And
once
can you
you've,
zoom in a little bit, Steve?
for sure, a little bit better.
Yeah.
Awesome. So once we've created content on our page, once we've published that content, and remember, when we look at our strategy, we had, you know, objectives, focus pillars, and then our content. And the final piece of that strategy was, how do we get people to see that content? How are people going to engage with it and see that stuff that we've put all that time and effort into creating? This here is an example of a post that we've done just over a week ago, talking about our relationship with the RVP. And the easiest way to promote that across Facebook and Instagram is to use either the boost button down here, or on Instagram it's called the promote button. It's relatively basic, and it used to, well, it's relatively straightforward. It used to be very, very basic. It used to be a bit of a tripwire for business owners, because you didn't get any options of who you wanted to target. So you can see here we've got an audience option, who we want to try and target, and there never used to be that. And it was more of a way, I think, of Facebook getting paid a whole lot of money from business owners because they'd heard that Facebook ads work. Since then, it's developed a lot, and it's now a much better tool. And we do recommend businesses who haven't run any ads before starting here. It is, again, easy to use, and we recommend it. And here we've got a few different tick box options. So again, we can choose people you choose through targeting, and we'll get into an example of that in a sec. You can go people who like your page, which is a really good option if you've got a whole lot of fans of your page, but not many people are seeing your posts. First and foremost, a lot of the businesses out there should be talking to people who like your page, because they are, you know, current customers, friends, family, partners, suppliers, people that know about your business and know about your page. So often the cheapest and easiest sales can come from those people who already like your page. They're just not seeing your posts. There's a few other options there. People who like your page and their friends. This one here we don't really use particularly a lot, because their friends is very broad, right? We don't necessarily know who their friends are, where they're located, if they've got the same hobbies and passions and needs as what this person that we're targeting, or the person that likes our page has, and the reason why they liked our page. So we don't typically use that a whole lot. We'll either use people you choose through targeting, or people who like your page. There's a few other options there, people in your local area, which we can do manually in here when we choose through our targeting. I can show you what that would look like. And then another one that we've saved in there as well. But those are our primary two that we'll look at. To change who we're targeting, so at the moment, we've got very broad targeting. We're targeting both male and female, a wide group of ages, 18 to 65 plus, people in the Waikato, and we haven't got any interest targeting, which is down here. You can see down the bottom, we've got an audience of potential audience size of 260,000. So a lot of people. And the common mistake that people make is that they think the bigger this number, the more people that we're going to reach. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's the amount of people that we reach is always limited by our budget. So unless we're going to spend 10 grand, we wouldn't reach 260,000 people. So what I would encourage is, instead of businesses trying to build that number to be as big as possible, I really like to see that needle go back towards a specific side, so that we know that the people we're targeting are the most likely to buy our products. Quite cool, this tool here from Facebook is responsive. So if we change some of these settings, we'll see that number decrease. If we wanted to target people who were 20 to 30, and let's say males, then our audience has dropped to 41,000. So we're moving closer to that specific line. And I think it's much better to be there than to be super broad. Often when we get there, Facebook will tell us that your audience is too specific. But I think what's happening there is that Facebook kind of forgets how small New Zealand is, and especially when we're targeting Hamilton or the Waikato, or small towns within the Waikato. It's used to large scale America and UK and Europe. So don't be put off if it comes in here and says your audience is too small or too specific. Worry about that number more so than the text up the top there. And again, if we wanted to cut that down and say Hamilton, Waikato, then we've got an audience of 32,000. You can see there it's put a radius around our city, so we can close that up if we want, or we can go just the city itself. And again, you can see that number of people that we're targeting has reacted to that. You can target more than one place. So if we wanted to target Hamilton as well as Cambridge, then we can do that. And we could also change this one to say current city only. So there's the ability to target more than one place. I would then have a look through, who your customer demographics are, who are the people buying and engaging with your page and buying your products. And I wouldn't go too broad. I'd go, where is the saturation of people that are most likely to buy our stuff? Because that's where your best money is spent. And unless we've got really, really huge marketing budgets, which I don't think too many businesses do at the moment with everything that's going on, then we're better off to be more specific and spend less in the right place than spend more broadly. One of the cool things you can do when we looked at that, target people locally to your business, if we zoom in here, you can actually use a drop pin option. So if I had a cafe, and let's say we zoom in on Victoria Street, if I had a cafe here, and I was looking to target all the local businesses that are and people that are very close to my cafe or to my restaurant, then you can drop that radius. After we've dropped our pin, you can reduce that radius to just 1 mile. So very, very close, very, very close proximity to it. And that anyone that travels into that area or is working within that area or lives within that area. So very good. Again, we've seen our potential audience size decrease. And it's all reacted back to who we're trying to target. The last step, and this is a really important one, is people that match our detailed targeting. So we've got the ability to target people from the pages that they like, the groups they're a part of, and all the research that Facebook pays to get from third-party organizations. So if we wanted to target people who are interested in coffee, we have the ability to do that. You can see there it's their interest is coffee. And we've then reduced our size of audience to 2,300 people. But I can guarantee if we're spending $10 or $20 in marketing or to boost our post, that's the best audience for us to talk to. There's no point us trying to target the 46,000 males who live in the Waikato without any targeting, because we just don't know if they're interested in our products or if they're interested in our services. So it's worth jumping in here and having a bit of a look through and understanding who those demographics are. You can do things like business owners. And again, people will list things as job titles within Facebook. So Facebook has all this information about us. They know what we've listed as our occupation. They know what we've liked. They know all the pages we're a part of, groups we're a part of, things like that. And that's where all this data comes from. And it's what makes Facebook worth all the money that it is. Such a powerful tool because of this tool that's available to us. Never before have we had something this powerful. And I think understanding what's available is really good. There are some extra features in here, so we can do exclude people. So that's really interesting if we wanted to include a demographic but exclude a specific demographic. So you can be quite detailed with who we target there. And again, just keep in mind who that audience size is in relation to what your budgets are. But essentially that is the way that we'd target. So if we click save now, people you choose through targeting, that is all saved. Down here, we've also got a few other options. So automatic placements, this is where it tells us where this ad is going to run. We can turn this off and then manually select where we want it to run. Typically, we don't run ads on Instagram from Facebook. If you want to run ads on Instagram, we would do it from Instagram. I think content should typically be specific to that platform because people are on that platform for a reason. We then have our duration and budget. So how long we're going to run this campaign for. Minimum is 1 day and maximum is essentially whatever you want. Facebook quite often comes up with these tips and alerts. And to be honest, I don't think ads that run for at least 4 days tend to get better results. I think it's probably just a ploy to get people to run ads for longer. I typically run our ads for 1 day so that we don't have ads dragging on for too long, unless we've got a really, really big budget, in which case we might spread that out a bit longer. But ultimately, increasing our duration and the number of days that an ad runs for doesn't mean we reach more people. The budget is our limiting factor. So, so again, our budget that's set here, minimum budget is $1 a day, which is pretty awesome. It means that small businesses that don't have a huge marketing budget can get started on Facebook ads and can utilize it. And again, if you haven't done any ads for your page before, sorry, it's actually coming up saying $1.66. So they've increased that a little bit, but still very, very low. And for businesses that haven't yet dabbled in Facebook ads or paid advertising at all, the ability to start small and test it and try it and spend, you know, $30 over a whole month or $20 over a whole month, the ability is there to have a look and see what effect that has. And then from there, you can obviously increase it if it's working well. So I definitely encourage businesses to get in and try it. It's not as scary as a lot of people think. But remember, this is the path so that people see our content. The post, and once we click boost, that would go live. This post here that we did that we're using as an example has had a massive ad put behind it to make sure that people are reaching it and seeing that content that we've created. That hasn't happened organically. So keep that in mind. And like I said, give it a go and have a look and see. For anyone that's using that ads manager, I think there's a whole lot of tools in there that you can capitalize on to really get specific with those audiences. And definitely encourage you to make the most of all those targeting options that are there and testing and trying. There's no one answer that we can give in this webinar to say this is the exact right audience that you should be targeting. It's a matter of testing things and then seeing and learning from that. So that brings us to the end of that live example. I just wanted to really give people a way to get that path there. Obviously, there is a lot more to it, and there's a lot more available. But I'd love to kind of climb into some of those Q&A if anyone's got any questions that they've put in there and answer those.
Yeah, there are a few more. So should I just read through them again?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. So just on the topic of ads, Christine has asked, can you write down the steps you just took to run those Facebook ads, please?
Absolutely. So I'll send through, post this session, we can write down a quick step-by-step example of what we've just done, for sure.
Cool. Paul said, how often can you retell a story? Not everyone will see all your posts.
Great question, Paul. Not everyone will see your posts, and often if you're telling, if you're targeting different people, then you are going to be reaching a completely different audience. There will be a little bit of crossover, I guess, between some of your fans that see that post organically. So you don't want to tell the same story again and again, but definitely revisiting stories, 6 months or a year down the track, if they're still timely and still relevant, and I think is a really good option. Too many businesses have put all the work into creating things like blog posts, and then they publish them once and then kind of forget about them, whereas they should really look at recycling them and upcycling them and using them again, as long as they are timely and relevant. I remember an example of that is an accountancy firm that we work with created a blog post which talked about entertainment expenses at Christmas, and breaking down the differences between what you can and can't claim for and helping there. And basically part of their strategy is that every Christmas or in the lead into Christmas, they should be posting that blog post and keeping that up there and relevant. They don't need to go and write a blog post, a new one every time.
What tips can you give on how to avoid sounding too salesy within post copy to protect your brand while still driving excitement and interest? Absolutely.
So I guess anytime we are trying to sell, we've got to remember that we're providing a solution to businesses or to people. So I think keeping that in mind should help break down the barriers of or the worry of sounding too salesy. As a business owner, again, the accountancy firm is a good example where they didn't want to sound too salesy, and they were worried about being too pushy. But for me as a business owner, the last thing I want to deal with is my accounts and GSTs and this and that. So what they provide isn't a pushy salesy message, or it doesn't come across like that. It's actually a solution. So I think if we when we sit down to write those salesy posts, if we think about it as a solution and we think about it as something exciting and think about how we would tell someone at a barbecue or across a table about our products and about our services, then I think that's the best way to not be too salesy and try and have an element of clickbait, but we'd instead just tell someone like we would in person.
I'm just writing these down. So
Thanks a lot.
we've also going to Kathy's questions. Would you recommend Hootsuite to manage social media posts, MailChimp, or another system?
It's a good question. Was it Kathy? Is that right?
Yeah, Kathy.
Awesome. That's a good question, Kathy. Internally here at Lead Social, we actually really like to use each platform natively. It allows us the ability to see exactly how it looks, exactly how it feels, exactly how it reads on the platforms, and it also helps us, I think, keep in check with small changes that happen on those platforms. So as things get updated or new posting abilities come to, then we're very quick to jump on those and see. I think there are opportunities to save time with some of those platforms and some of those things like Hootsuite or Sprout Social to manage our posting. But I think for us, we probably recommend and we use just posting natively. I know Facebook's brought out the Creator Studio in the last sort of year, which takes care of posting from a desktop on Facebook as well as Instagram. And that's a tool that we've seen develop a little bit recently as well. So I think things will shift towards the Creator Studio becoming a more detailed tool, and you can post from that Facebook Creator Studio to multiple accounts. You can be logged into multiple accounts, sorry.
That also doesn't have a cost like some of those other systems might.
Yeah, and I think too, again, it's just, if it's a tool that's produced by those platforms, then it's a good idea to use them. In the early days, I sort of mean 4 or 5 years ago, we definitely saw organic reach was less if we posted through the likes of Hootsuite or a third-party publishing platform. I don't think that's the case anymore from what we've seen, but again, in the early days, we did see that organic reach had reduced because of it.
Cool. What is the easiest way to invite businesses you work with to like your Facebook business page? Is there a way to do this as a group invite?
Group invites. Look, I think the easiest way to invite people to like your page is to let them know about it, and perhaps give them the value that they would get by following. So if your page gives tips and tricks or has that value and provides, something for those customers, then I think telling people about that is the way to do it, and then letting them take it upon themselves to like the page. There's no point really having a whole lot of followers if they're not going to go and engage with your content. During the COVID lockdown, I did see a whole lot of businesses using the invite all function. So they were inviting all of their friends and encouraging other people to invite all of their friends to like a page. And I don't think that's a very good strategy, because you end up with a whole lot of people who like your page who may not necessarily be your target market, who may not be in the same town or city or country as you. And you just end up with a whole lot of empty followers. And I think whilst that number might look good from an ego or a page number standpoint, it's not very good for our engagement rates, and it makes it look like our content isn't doing as well as it probably should. So we probably focus less on getting people to like the page and less on that total number, and we focus more on how many engagements is each of our posts getting, and then obviously the followers that come in from that are going to be high quality followers that have taken it upon themselves to like a page.
There's also other ways you can get people to go and like your Facebook page. Is you can make sure you include your Facebook handle on your business card or in your email signature if you send out newsletters, sending reminders in your newsletter. So I would encourage including it in your other brand collateral.
Definitely a lot of things there as well. I think, sorry, I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of offline things you can do as well, right? I've seen, table cards and counter pamphlets that have been put out that say, hey, we're on Facebook, and there's a good way of kind of letting those people know that who are in your business or the foot traffic know that you're also on there as well, which can be really good, especially if you're just starting out or if it's early days.
Also, if you've got a decent Facebook following and you're moving on to Instagram, let your Facebook followers or fans know that you're on Instagram so that people can be directed to your handle easily, and on vice versa, you could do the same on Instagram and direct people through to your Facebook.
Nice.
Anything else to add to that one, Steve?
No, I think that's me.
Cool. One last question is, can you please advise how to post to multiple groups at the same time in Facebook? At the moment, I have to post from my business page to each group as my business page individually, which is quite time consuming. So how does she post to multiple pages or groups from her business account?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can do that.
No, I think from memory, I know when you post to a personal, from your personal page to a group, and it might just be the buy and sell group kind of things, but it might give you an option to also post that in other places. But I probably wouldn't encourage too much mass producing. Like, I think anytime we take big shortcuts like that, we're going to get less results out of it. Like, I think if you could manually post each one to each group, and again, if you're copying and pasting that content over and you've already got the imagery done for it, then hopefully it shouldn't take too long. But by doing it manually, you've probably got a better opportunity to personalize it and to make sure that it gets approved and to make sure that Facebook doesn't see you as blasting content. The last thing that you want is for Facebook to then go and ban your business page or shut down that, or you be excluded from a group. I probably need to see some more specifics around what groups and what messaging you're doing to go into much more detail than that. Chloe, was it Chloe still?
Kathy.
Yeah.
Can you schedule posts into groups on Facebook?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is any third-party tools that will allow you to do it, because typically groups are private or require approval for you to be a part of that. So from memory, that the majority of them aren't able to schedule. I know if you own the group, then I'm pretty sure you can schedule within there. But yeah, if you're not the group owner, then I think you have to do it manually. And again, I think while scheduling posts is a really, really good idea and it's a great way of saving time on content on your page and on your profiles, which is again where the Creator Studio comes in and plays a really good part. Engaging in groups is about a community and is about the people, and I think being closer to that and doing more things manually there, if it is time consuming, it probably gets a better result. Especially if you can personalize that key message and say, address the people in that group or address the name of the group that you're talking to.
No other last minute questions answered. Nothing else in Q&A or chat. Oh, here we go. In the chat. Oh, cool. No other Facebook or Instagram questions, guys? Cool.
And then just really quick. Oh, off you go.
You go.
I was just going to move on to the 5 takeaway points, but if there's another question there, Alex, do you want to?
No question, just no vowels. Point in the chat.
Oh, yes, I'll just have a quick look.
Just for COVID business support, please contact Te Waka, and the phone number is there along with an email address.
Awesome. Perfect. Just really quickly to finish before everyone leaves as well, I think we've got 5 takeaway points, which we've done for you, 5 actions to implement now. And I guess it's just a good way to wrap things up after some of those good questions that have come through around how you can do things. So I guess create a strategy and a mind map of content. especially if your business isn't back up operating now and you've got some more time up your sleeve, then I think dedicating some time to this will pay dividends. With a clear plan in place, you can save a lot of time, and it makes content a lot easier. And we just know that it maps back to your objectives, and the chance of you doing and achieving those goals is much higher. Do the $80 strategy. I won't get into it now because we're short on time. We're over time already, but Google $80 strategy will come up. It's by a guy called Gary Vee, and I think it's very, very powerful for the likes of LinkedIn and Instagram. Again, very relevant when we've got a bit more time up our sleeve. Don't leave the results on the table, run ads. Again, it's the number one mistake we're seeing businesses make out there, especially in New Zealand, is that they think social media is for free. And whilst it is free to get set up, it is free to post. The opportunity lies in that ads and getting people down that path to see your content. So make the most of that. Start measuring everything. Again, track. There's a whole lot of ways to do that, which take a little bit longer than this webinar allows us to kind of cover. But I guess this is why we encourage businesses to look at digital marketing versus traditional. The amount that you can measure, the things that you can get back from it is phenomenal. Whereas that traditional media is really limited in that sense. And seize the opportunity and start today, not tomorrow. I guess I'd like to encourage everyone to make a start now. A lot of businesses out there are regretting that they didn't start 6 months ago. And the best thing that we can do is make a start now. So get on board and go for it. Again, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to reach out after this webinar. More than happy to answer them and provide that step-by-step instructions for the ads, which we talked about earlier. I'm not too sure if you wanted to talk a little bit more, Naval, about some of the funding that is available from the regional business partners in Te Waka. But we're working closely with them to help provide support to businesses who are going through this time and are looking for a bit more stuff. I think you should be unmuted there, Naval. Are you right?
Yes, I think, yeah, I'm good to go. Thank you for that, Steve. Thank you, Alex. That's quite a good instruction. It went a bit detailed. I think it would help some of the business owners who have not done that before. It'd be really useful to do that. They can start experimenting and try to do the Facebook ads and so on. But we at Te Waka are here to provide business support through the COVID-19 funding. I've put on the chat the contact number and email. Please email us or contact us, or any of the participants who have businesses that may need this help. Please refer them to us. We'll have a chat to them and find out what their needs are, and we'll provide the necessary support. It's fully funded at the moment for businesses to access some of these services, which are part of the business continuity plan. And there'll be others coming online too, and we're just waiting for confirmation from the government in terms of the services and what else we can do to support them. Thank you to both Steve and Alex, and you have their contact details. You can go onto their website, Facebook, and connect with them. And so I'll finish off with a closing karakia. Kia tau te rangi mari, ki runga i ngā tangata katoa o te ao, haumie, huie, taiki. Thank you all.
Thanks, Naval. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. See you later.